Okay, so I'm here with Kexin Cherie. She is one of the 16 contestants from the Apprentice One Championship edition this season. Kexin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Steve. What about yourself?
I'm doing good. How's everything in Germany right now?
I guess pretty similar to the UK, but I think you guys are a lot more lucky because your restrictions are down, right? You're allowed to go out and
Yeah, a
everything.
little bit now, yeah.
Yeah. We still have curfews and everything, so.
Yeah, I've got a friend who's out in Germany for university,
Oh.
so I kind of see a little bit how it is. Um, so tell me a little bit about your background and then how you first got into business.
Okay, so the first time I got into business was in high school, actually. It was in the economy class of my high school. And we founded a fair trade company, actually. We wanted to provide fair wages to chocolate and coffee farmers in third world countries by eliminating the third man, right, in the logistics. And that was the first time I really tapped into entrepreneurship. But since it was in high school, there was a teacher who actually, did everything for us. So we were pretty safe off, I guess. And the next time I tapped into entrepreneurship was in college. I was studying in the UK for
Yeah.
a year abroad, and that's where I founded my online shop. That was an e-commerce shop for jewelry, and that was sold on social media mainly with SEO and so on, and that went pretty well. But then I had problems with scaling, so I left that out as well. And the third station then was the entrepreneur and in the finance venture. So entrepreneur, meaning that I was responsible for building up sales channels for a big finance company, and that's what I did for 5 years before now doing fintech.
How do you find your year in the UK then?
It was very nice. It was very nice. I was in Cambridge, and I have to say, about the all these small student cities, there's people are so focused on building relationships, on finding friends, partying a lot, obviously,
Yeah.
because everyone is going to be there for just a few months. So of course, everyone's going to, be super friendly to each others and very, very open-minded towards other people. I had fun.
You had kind of a tough upbringing, didn't you? Tell me a bit about this, and then how did this prepare you, not just for The Apprentice, but also just life and business in general?
Well, I wouldn't really say that I had a tough upbringing, but I do acknowledge the challenges that I had. And I also know that these challenges have actually shaped me into the person that I am. So basically, the story is that my parents split up when I was 2. So I basically grew up only with my dad and my brother, thinking that my mom wouldn't love me. She abandoned us and just left us alone. And I was always the supporting pillar for both my brother and my dad because my father was very, very, he was working a lot. He was new in a country. He didn't speak the language. He fled, and everything. And that was very, very hard for him. And he didn't have anyone except for us. So it was basically me, the 8-year-old, listening to my dad, and trying to mentally support him and walk him through the divorce and everything. So that was quite harsh, actually. But he always did the best in his abilities, to provide for us. So in my opinion, in my head, of course I was going to do that, right, because he was my dad. In high school then I also got bullied a lot. I also in primary school, actually in primary school it was to a different reason, because I was bullied in primary school because I was Asian, growing up in a mainly German town. And in high school I actually got bullied because I liked to listen to metal. So I was like this little goth girl, and all the cool kids were hip hop, and that's why I didn't belong, and they called me names in the hallways and everything. But at the end of the day, I guess I just got used to being the black sheep, sort of, not really belonging, and actually questioning why everyone wanted to be so popular, because I didn't see why people wanted to be popular, because at the end of the day, all they did was bullying people, Yeah.
So, how did your family end up in Germany then?
So my dad, he left China, I think about like 30 years ago already. So he left China with my uncle, actually, and they were both, a tag team, having like small jobs in small Chinese restaurants, washing dishes, and sometimes they even slept outside. Like they didn't have a home for a few weeks first, and then they applied for asylum. So they went into this camp, with all the other people who fled their countries, and learned German, and then I guess he just worked his way up and got a credit from the bank, and then he started his, career in owning restaurants.
So, we'll move on a little bit now. How did you first find out about The Apprentice, and what was this application process like?
So I actually found out about The Apprentice because a good friend of mine posted it onto her Instagram story because she was applying for Asia's Next Top Model, which is the same production
Yeah.
house as The Apprentice. So I actually thought it was a perfect time for me because it was during the first lockdown last year.
Yeah.
And that was actually the first time after 5 years for me to actually reflect on my situation and actually ask myself, okay, is the way that I'm currently on the way I want to go for my future? And I actually had the realization that I didn't want to do it anymore because I found out that I was a robot, the last 3 years and not passionate about anything anymore. So I applied with it. I just filled out a form sheet. Actually, they actually even asked for a video, but I didn't send a video in because it was just very casual. It was in the night and I just applied via my mobile phone. Then a few days later, they sent me a mail with more questions. They wanted me to to shoot a video, introducing myself, telling about my story a little bit, just the way that I did with you, right? My career and how I got brought up and everything, and why I want to apply for The Apprentice. Then I haven't heard back from them in weeks. So basically it was just me chasing them, just like, hi, just checking in, so do you have a feedback for me? Yeah, just, I think I signed out like 5 emails, like, trying to chase them for feedback. I haven't heard from them then maybe in like a month. Then I had another interview with the production. They asked me certain questions about certain business topics or how I would react in certain situations. So for example, one question was, okay, so as a young woman, how would you react if a very, senior old man in his 40s would question your ability and ask you, question your leadership? How would I react to that? Like these kind of questions. They really wanted to test the people if they were, too vanilla, if they were pushovers, or if they could actually stand up for themselves. And then I think it was 3 months of hearing nothing again. And then someday I got invited to the interview with Chatri, the Zoom interview. And I actually thought that he was going to ask me a lot of questions again. So I prepared a whole speech for him, but it was 3 a.m. in the morning in Germany. I didn't say anything for my speech. All I did was lull something while being half asleep. And then he told me, you know what? What if I told you that this wasn't actually an interview, but I actually want to tell you that you are a part of the candidates, And then I started crying in the Zoom video. It was recorded. It was even posted onto social media. So yeah.
Yeah. So were you a MMA fan or a One Championship fan before applying for the show?
I think I resonate a lot, or mostly actually, with the values that come with MMA, to be honest. Discipline, integrity, courage, and having respect, even though you're opponents, right? Because I think that's very, very beautiful. And I think the biggest reason for me to apply to One Championship was actually the fact that it was Asian, because me being an Asian here in Europe, it doesn't really feel homely because it's just very, very far away from home. And I just have my brother and my father here in Germany. So I was always looking for the connection back to my roots. And One Championship was perfect with it. They have the big media, business, corporate, and with the values that I just resonated so much with.
You mentioned the values there. Obviously, One Championship have been pretty big with the Stop Asian Hate campaign. You've been a big part of that as well. Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes. So basically, everything started because of the coronavirus, right? It was a very, very big issue in the US, or still is, and even here in Germany and in Europe. I don't know if you feel it in the UK even.
Yeah, I've seen things, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the people are just trying to blame it on someone, right? And they love to blame it on the Chinese. And I would also like to say that this is probably due to, the former president, giving the virus certain names and everything. So everything was just very, very bad, just not just on social media, but actually people on the streets harassing them, spitting on them, pushing them over, actually smashing them. And the sad thing about that is that they are actually attacking our elderlies. And that's where my limit is, right? Honestly, if they want to attack me, okay, I'm here for it, but don't attack the auntie or the granddad, who isn't able to defend himself. And I just think that is absolutely disrespectful and just shows that they have absolutely no integrity.
So when you first arrived into Singapore, how did things go then? Because you had a bit of a quarantine period, didn't you?
Yes, so I had 2 weeks of quarantine, and I was really trying to prepare myself as much as I could. I was always studying every single day, recapping on things that I learned in my studies, or reading through business cases, doing a lot of research, and also training a lot, because I'm just a Jimmy, right? But I knew that the other contestants were probably triathlon finishers or professional MMA fighters or something like that. And I always was super scared that I may be too weak and that I would actually lose in the physical task. So I did a lot of upper body strength, for example. I really trained every single day in order to train my mindset and train my body also and my skills. And I also even prepared a presentation for myself to look at if I ever lose confidence, because I think it's the hardest part of the competition is actually believing in yourself continuously, even though the competitors are so strong that you actually have to remind yourself you deserve to be here.
So at what point of the preparation did they tell you there was going to be physical challenges? Because that's obviously not normal for the apprentice.
I actually knew it, I think, throughout the first interview, because that's what they said, actually. Yeah, so they asked me if I am a fit person,
Okay. So then the first time you're on set with everyone, how did you feel?
Mm-hmm. So the first time I was on set was actually during a briefing that was still off camera.
No.
And the funny thing is they told us we weren't allowed to talk to anyone, or, just to introduce ourselves and everything. And so we sat in a room, and a few of them I already saw during the days at Anna's hotel, because I think I arrived at Anna's 2 days before we started shooting. So I already kind of, looked around, and I already knew this person's probably, a contestant because he's alone and he's obviously not from Asia or something like that. And of course we were going to talk to each other. I mean, right? Because the production team told us no talking to each other. So as soon as the briefing was over, everyone sat down, and just we had a chit chat, So we were pretty close already from, before everything started.
So of the special guests you had on the show, which one of those excited you the most?
Oh, I have to say Angela Lee, definitely.
Yeah.
Because, she's a female fighter and I look up to her a lot, and she's just a beautiful person inside and out. And also, of course, the panda, because she's Chinese and I am also Chinese.
Yeah.
And I think the most pleasant meeting I actually had was with Renzo Gracie, to be honest, because he was such a nice person. Like, it wasn't shown on the episode, but he was on Team Valor, right, to support us, to coach us with the upselling and everything. And he was on top of the bridge, screaming at us the whole time, you can do this, come on, push through. I'm so proud of you. You gotta be the champion here. And that was just so sweet. And as soon as everyone, went back to the top, he always hugged us and everything. So that was so sweet.
So obviously in the episodes, the physical challenges are about 10 minutes. How long did they take up as part of your day?
Ooh, so we had call times at around 5 a.m. in the morning. That's when we got into hair and makeup. We had like a little bit of breakfast, just like an apple or something. And then we arrived at location about 9 a.m. and we left the location about 5 p.m. So it was a long, long time, because there was also a lunch break in between, and they have to reshoot a lot of things from different angles and everything, right? So actually we were so exhausted before we started the business challenges. Sometimes my brain was, I don't know, I think my soul just left my body. I was physically there in the room sometimes, but everything was gone, actually.
So when you're working on the business challenges, because I would think, obviously, in a similar to the physical challenges being cut down, they're obviously cut down because it's an hour show. So give me an idea of the timeline of everything.
So we started in the evening after a physical task, right? So that's a half a day that they gave us. And then we have another day, a full day of working on our on our business challenge. And then the day after that was already pitch day. So basically it meant we had 1.5 days to execute on a huge business challenge that sometimes, in normal companies would take, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks to implement, So that was a lot of work. And actually all of us, we literally didn't sleep. So I think there was no night that we slept earlier than 3 a.m. in the morning and had to wake up at 5 again,
Yeah. So you mentioned the sleep deprivation before, obviously. How mentally challenging was it? And did this become more challenging the further you got into the show, or do you just get used to it?
So I think the funny thing is, even though all of us were sleep deprived, as soon as you see Chatri, man, his energy It's, I don't know, like I like to compare it to the hockey, you know, I don't know, I watch One Piece, right? I like watching animes, and hockey is like the energy someone sends you out and you're just like frozen, because Chatri has this gaze. When you look into his eyes the whole time, you feel like he's going to break your spirit or something, right? So
Yeah.
that was actually something that kept me awake, even though I was so sleep deprived, right? So we always, before a pitch, we had 2 run-throughs to test the cameras, and that's every single time we practiced the pitch. And sometimes we would mess up the run-throughs, but as soon as Chatri was standing in front of us, we were on 100. Like the energy just came. It was the adrenaline rush. And actually, I think the way it has impacted us was just us being a lot more vulnerable. You know, I wouldn't say that the focus was lost a lot, or that, you know, the skill set was lost a lot, but mostly it was really, you know, the courage, the confidence, the mental stability and everything. You know, we were so vulnerable, and that's actually the reason why there was so much drama on the show, you know, because we were so tired.
Yeah. Obviously you see a lot of people opening up with some vulnerabilities in the boardroom as well, don't you? So do you think that played a part in that?
Mm.
So of the challenges we've seen so far, both the physical challenges and the business challenges, which one do you think was the toughest?
Wow. Okay. So the physical task that was the hardest was, I couldn't really decide between the upscaling, to be honest, or the physical task that is coming up next week in the next episode, of us being in a helicopter crash, because both of them have different difficulties, you know, because both of them you were really scared. With the upsetting, you were scared to fall down, and with the helicopter crash, you're scared to drown, basically, right? And both of them were just so mentally exhausting and physically exhausting. It was the worst. But actually, I feel like with the upsetting, all of us had a lot more bruises. Like my legs, my arms, everything was super bruised, and with everyone else as well. So I think maybe that one. And the business challenge, to be honest, I felt like it was probably episode 5, the hybrid product.
Yeah.
It was so hard for us to come up with a hybrid product, and not just a featuring or a collaboration, but just, you know, an actual new product with 2 companies that are so different from each other. That was very tough.
Yeah. So obviously we saw you working on both teams so far this season. How did that experience compare on both teams, and what was your reaction when you were told you had to switch?
I don't know if you could tell in episode 3, but I actually cried when I was told that I got switched, because of course, you know, you have this whole week with a team that kept on winning. We had a winning streak, and not just a winning streak. We had synergy, we had chemistry, we had harmony. You know, everyone was so supportive of each other's, and that is actually something that you really need in order to win. You know, like the support of a team, and loving the team so much that no matter what, you never want to give up, because you want to keep the team upright, right? With Team Conquest, it was a whole different experience, because everyone was really fighting for themselves. And I feel like when you fight for yourself, there is so much synergy lost, actually, because I feel like you need a bigger reason than just yourself in order to push through. But when you don't have that on Team Conquest, right, and all you do is fear that people will switch around your words, or all they do is observe you to find out your weaknesses, you know, in order to bring it up in a boardroom. And, you know, of course you will get paranoid, and of course alliances will build up, and that is just so toxic, in my opinion. I mean, I was okay working with them, because at the end of the day I knew it was toxic, but I still, you know, just did what I did. But I know that other people were affected a lot more than by that.
In the 3rd episode, when you moved, you immediately offered to be PM. Why did you make this decision, given that you were new to the team, and then how did your teammates react to that?
So I made the conscious decision to put myself up as a PM for episode 3, because I thought, you know what, I have to show that I want to step up, you know, and that I'm not scared just because I was switched to another team, you know, that I am still confident in myself, and that I know that everything will turn out to be all right, you know, or good, even better. And I think the episode 3, the challenge was just so close to my heart. It was about entrepreneurship, you know, about telling the story and the journey and the struggles of an entrepreneur. And that is basically what I do. So I just resonated so much with that. Of course, there was a risk, but I wanted to show Chatri that I am a risk taker, that I'm not scared of a challenge.
Yeah. And when you compare that to Lara, who went to the other team, and she really just took a back seat in that episode, didn't she?
Yeah, I think so. I think Lara, she mentioned that she had a tough time before entering the competition. And I feel like if you have a tough time, sometimes the brain will play tricks on you, right? Because you get back to those old patterns of the way you thought about yourself or the way you feel about yourself. And I think that's unfortunately something Lara fell back into because she is very, very talented, and she has a lot of power. But I think she started to doubt herself because she knew Team Battle was such a winning team. Everyone was super, super skilled. And maybe, she didn't have the confidence to really step up.
Yeah. So I've got a few names here. Just kind of talk about them and your experience with them on the show. We'll start with an easy one. Jessica.
Jess is my ride or die since day one. Like the first episode, we were always paired up from day one up until the end, right?
Yeah.
And in the first episode, we had the physical test of us, running up the climbing thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually the moment where I told her, you know what, we're gonna run up as fast as we can. We're just gonna slide down or jump down. Like when we climb down, we're gonna lose so much time. And she was like, "This is fucking crazy. Okay, I'm in, and that was the moment I knew, okay, this bitch is as crazy as I am, and that's a match, definitely.
Niraj.
Niraj is so funny. Actually, the first few episodes, I was like, you are such a flirtatious guy. Like I always told him, Niraj, all you do is flirt, right? And he was like, no, I'm not a flirty person, but he was flirting like with everyone, I felt like. But actually, I knew later on, I learned that it was really coming from a place of love. And he was so loyal to us. The day he told us about Nazee wanting to bring down Jess, that was the moment we started to trust him and really include him into our family.
The thing I notice about Niraj, he's such a good speaker, isn't he?
Yes, he is so funny. Actually, we cracked up every single time.
Monica.
Monica is a genius, honestly. Like if one person knows something about branding, then it's her. And it's just so crazy how her mind works. And honestly, I admire her a lot because I feel like with execution and analytics and data, all of these things can be learned. But creativity, I'm not sure if you can learn that. I just think you have to have a natural gift for that. And she has that.
Eugene.
Eugene, I have to say, I was quite close with him before the shooting started because we knew each other from Instagram already.
Yeah.
But I felt like during the nature of the competition, we both drifted apart slightly. The first episode, he was holding back Tara and Monica while running. And then he was all over the place on episode 3, not really accepting boundaries. And he always had a lot of discussions with other teammates. So I guess I had to deter a little bit from him. But actually, after his elimination, that was the moment where we started bonding again, actually, and talk about, hey, it was just a competition. I still like you as a person.
Yeah. Irina.
Irina is such a fierce and such a kind person, honestly. I felt like she wasn't shown a lot up until now. So I really hope that her story gets told more, in the upcoming episodes. But she is such a hardworking girl. And I always called her a little puppy-eyed blonde Russian bombshell because she has big puppy eyes. And she's just such a genuine person.
This might be where it gets interesting. Nazee.
Nazee, I have to say, I don't know what it is about her because everyone knows that she's toxic and that she's strategic, but I honestly don't have the emotion towards her the way the other people have that. I see that she is like that, but I also sense that there's a woman inside who actually wants to be accepted, and actually wants to show love, but maybe was scared all the time because she grew up, in a man industry, in a male dominated industry. So maybe she had like trust issues towards women. So I kind of had empathy with her, to be honest.
I think this next one could be about half an hour on its own. Clinton.
Clinton, honestly, it was such an up and down with him, to be honest. The first few episodes I was like, okay, maybe I'm just misunderstanding him and everyone's misunderstanding him. That progressed into, okay, I think there's some certain kind of childhood trauma or some certain kind of insecurity with him. I'm really trying to understand him, and actually push him so he stops being so toxic, because that's probably just a defense mechanism. And then it progressed to all his insecurities are projected onto other people. And then it progressed to, oh man, this guy is just crazy. And maybe he's really trying to better himself. And at the end, my final verdict was, Clinton, you are just genuinely a confused person, and all you do is hurt other people because you hurt yourself, and I don't want to have anything to do with you.
There were a few times in the boardroom where Chatri kind of took Clinton's side a little bit. How did you feel about that?
Well deserved, to be honest, but I still do think that honestly, I mean, every one of us, until every single episode, we all screamed, Clinton needs to get out, he needs to be kicked. But Chach was like, you know what, I'm just going to look at him, I need to make my mind up. And I was just like, Chatri, you have to make your mind up, like, it's so obvious.
So were you guys actively trying to get him out at one point?
I don't think that it was conspired. I think every single time we tried to get him out, it was based on facts. There were episodes where he was really well behaved, but sometimes he was still the person, who contributed the least. And I think that's something that he needs to separate. But because yes, you are better now and you were very nice to us, but compared to the others, you still lacked.
All right, next one now then. Sage Northcutt.
Sage Northcutt is just, he's such a huge kid. I don't know, like, he is so big and buff and so strong, but his spirit is so childish and so young and so energetic. And he actually told us the stories about how much food he orders and how much, how many eggs he eats on a day. I think it was like 20 eggs a day or something. So that was actually quite crazy.
Last one now then. Chatri.
Chatri is the definition of intense. Honestly, I think there really is a reason why this is the toughest apprentice ever in history, because he really needs a person who is able to keep up with his intensity. Because if you're weak-minded, or if you take things personally, or then you're not going to survive under Chatri.
So we're just over halfway through the show now. What can people look out for the remainder of the show?
People can look out through how personalities come out a lot more. So now that we're a lot less people, everyone is really able to showcase their personality and to really, showcase their motivation or how they grew up, right? So I feel like there is a lot more connection with the viewer now, because all of us are able to really shine more.
Yeah.
And I also think that you will see that Chatri is getting warmer and warmer, because he really grew attached to us slowly throughout every single episode. Yeah. And he also got affected by, having to eliminate certain candidates.
Yeah. You mentioned there people's personalities coming out a bit. I don't know if it's the way it was edited or whatever, but it seemed like it took 2 or 3 episodes maybe for your personality to come out a little bit. Why do you think that is?
You are absolutely right, to be honest. But I do have to say, in the first episode, I didn't really show a lot of personality, to be honest. I feel like from episode 2 on, that was actually the moment that Chatri started to acknowledge me, because he gave me a lot of good feedback on my pitch part on the second episode that was cut down a lot. Right. And him switching me to Team Conquest also meant something. And on episode 4, that was actually the moment he said the first time, on the show or in front of everyone, that he saw something special in someone. Of course, since then, I felt like I had a little target on my back, to be honest, but that didn't really affect me, because from that on, I had to prove every single day that it is worth that Chatri sees something in me.
All right. So where can people keep up with what you're doing now then?
They can follow me on Instagram at Kexin Cherie. And yeah, that's it. That's my main medium.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Thank you so much for the time today. It's been really fun. Anyone who sees this, make sure you watch the Apprentice One Championship Edition whenever it's available to you. Thanks for the time today, Kexin.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thanks.